All right. Welcome everyone to our webinar on including people with complex disabilities in development project. Firstly, I'll take you through and let you know about the accessibility features of this webinar. Next slide, please. So about sign and language interpretation, our today's webinar is in English. Closed captions are also available during the webinar. To view the captions in Zoom, click the closed captions, CC, button and then select Show Subtitles. International Sign Language is also available throughout. An interpreter will be in spotlight on screen on the entirety of the event. A little bit about housekeeping. Please use the chat function to make any comment. If you have any questions for the speakers, please type them in the Zoom Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and shared afterwards. A little bit about Inclusive Futures. Inclusive Futures brings together specialists in disability development, research, and other areas from more than 10 organizations. We pool our expertise to fill gaps in research and evidence practical learning about how to include people with disabilities in development. By putting people with disabilities in the driving seat, in shaping how our education, health, and livelihood programs are run, we have helped transform the lives of over 3.5 million people with disabilities in 6 countries in Africa and Asia. And now I would like to welcome today's chair, Gayatri Sekar. Gayatri Sekar is the Senior Officer Learning and Community Development at International Disability Alliance. At International Disability Alliance, Gayatri develops learning products and knowledge resources to community-driven processes. Coming from Southern India and drawing on her lived experience of psychosocial disability, he centers the perspectives of communities historically marginalized with global development practices. Her work focuses on inclusive research, learning design, and the equitable production and dissemination of knowledge in the global south. With a background in knowledge management, instructional design, public health, Gayatri is committed to approaches that strengthen OPD leadership and advance disability inclusive development, grounded in rights, representation, and community experience. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I now welcome Gayatri to take us through the webinar. Over to you, Gayatri.
Thank you, Daniel, and a very warm welcome and hello to everyone who is with us today. In our discussions today, we will focus on a critical area of disability inclusion, ensuring that persons with multiple impairments, complex disabilities, and high support needs have equitable access to services and opportunities. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities makes it clear that all persons with disabilities should expect to enjoy rights on an equal basis with others. Yet, in practice, persons with disabilities facing higher restrictions to participation and/or multiple impairments are far too often left behind. If we design inclusion efforts only around those who are easiest to reach, we will continue to reproduce exclusion for those who are easy to miss and the hardest to find. Persons with complex disabilities are often missing and absent from data, from consultations, from programs, And this is not because they are unreachable, but because systems are not built to reach them. A truly inclusive approach starts by intentionally centering those who are at the margins and designing from their lived experience rather than treating them as exceptions. Today, we will reflect on the inclusion of persons with complex disabilities in the Inclusive Futures Disability Inclusive Development Program that Daniel introduced us to. This was an 8-year-long multi-country initiative that was funded by UK Aid. It worked across Bangladesh, Kenya, Nepal, Nigeria, Tanzania, and Uganda. The program's goal was to build global evidence on what really works to improve the lives of persons who are the most marginalized. Sense International, a partner within the Inclusive Futures Consortium, as part of this evidence gathering, in collaboration with partners, has developed a learning paper which presents 7 key lessons for designing, implementing, and monitoring development interventions that genuinely include persons with multiple and complex disabilities. I'm excited to be here to moderate and participate in this discussion, to launch this paper, reflect on experiences from the program, and discuss this very important topic. So first, I would like to share 7 key findings that this paper presents as recommendations for effective inclusion. The first one is creating an enabling environment, providing direct one-to-one assistance, working with families, caregivers, and personal assistants for providing flexibility and a range of project pathways. Fifth, to engage persons with complex disabilities to deliver project activities. Sixth, ensuring that there is more time and time accommodations for skill development. 7, addressing attitudinal change. During our time today, we will hear about practical examples in relation to enabling environments, one-to-one assistance, working with families and caregivers, and time accommodations from an esteemed panel of speakers who are with us today. We have with us Julius Mahundi, Program Lead, Sense International Tanzania, Mellen Marucha, Senior Program Coordinator, Sense International Kenya, Sanu Khimbaja, Program Manager, National Federation of the Deaf, Nepal. We will also hear from Sazzad Kabir, Development Manager, Center for Disability in Development, Bangladesh, and reflections from Shrutilata Singh, who is a Senior Specialist Network Support Sense in International India. And without much ado, over to you, Julius. If you would like to start us off by reflecting on what stood out for you and provide practical examples from your work in Tanzania on creating an enabling environment for the inclusion of persons with disabilities.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gayatri, for that introduction. And it's, of course, a pleasure to join this very important discussion today. And of course, I'll be sharing, our experience on the inclusive futures. Particularly, I'll be focusing on the Task Order 51 project on inclusive education in Tanzania, around creating an enabling environment, for people with complex disabilities here. And here we acknowledge, that including people with complex disabilities, requires every one of us to move beyond policy commitments. There are a lot of documents, the policy documents that are within the government and the community, but we need to focus on how systems actually function. So I mean, like for those with highest needs for support. So I will highlight a few lessons from the task order 51 around enabling environment for persons with disabilities. And in this case, of course, I will mostly focus on children with complex disabilities within the task order 51 project. The first lesson for us is around identification and, of course, holistic assessment. And we have done that through the so-called educational support resource and assessment centers in the country. And for us, that means that people with complex disabilities are often very much excluded. And that does not mean because, services are not there, but that is because, the systems do fail to identify and understand the needs, very early enough in the ages that is required. So under the Inclusive Futures Project, the TO51, so we have strengthened actually the school and community-based screening to make sure that, we identify, but also we link them to a team of multidisciplinary group. And these, include the health, education, and the social welfare to ensure that, the support is tailored, to individual needs rather than, just focusing on assumptions. So that is what we have been trying to do. And that has given us a lot of impact in terms of making sure that we have enrolled a lot of children to schools. I would tell you an example, when we started in 2020. So we only, had 56 children, but, to 2023, we are able to enroll more than 700 children, in one district. And this demonstrates, that identification systems do work. And then after identification systems, and then we, inclusion comes in. So this is one thing that I wanted to share. But also the other lesson that we have had is how much are we also including, OPDs, Organization of People with Disabilities, but also the community disability committees. So in Tanzania, we are working very closely with OPDs, and we have small structures just rooted and established just within the community that are made up of people with their disabilities, like small committees. These help, build trust, but they also do, shift some attitudes, and they encourage, of course, families to come forward and, take their children to school, because before disability, was rooted around stigma, which was a big barrier for people with complex disabilities, because it was associated with kind of shame or punishment within the community. But by doing that, we're able to establish, in all the villages that we worked, 15 of them, so very independent, village disability committee, which, were able to identify more than 34 out of school children, of course, with disabilities. So for that, I mean, like for us, that was kind of a big impact, and it showed community ownership. And as we are winding up the project this year, I mean, just last year, we are now in the final stages. We are confident that that will mean sustainability beyond, the project itself. So that's something that it also worked very much, and it's a good lesson from us as well. Yeah. So the other thing that I also want to share, and that, would also benefit other people, is how do we also include, the practitioners within the education sector. And in this case, I mean teachers, I mean, the community workers. How do we include that central, bring them to the center in the inclusion, because they are expected actually to deliver a lot, but without support, how can they do that? Without resources, how can they do that? Without the essential tools and adequate tools, teaching and learning tools, how can they do that? So through the inclusive futures, we focused on ongoing capacity building, mentally, practical screening sessions, and tools, how to make sure that they use them, but also enabling frontline actors like those teachers. So we have them here, like your continuous professional learning for teachers. So that was very important, and it made a lot of difference as we did that. So we did a study, I mean, like screening about 52 learners. So, and we used, government learning, I mean, approved tools and which identified about 160 children, which required, of course, further assessment, and many of whom were, would have been, missed through informal observation, which was done, before using the tools that we designed through the project. So the last thing, probably, if time is within my side, if I also to mention is around, referrals and coordination systems within the government. So we worked very closely with the government. We supported the government to establish, the ESRAC centers, the educational assessment centers within the country, just a few of them. But how do we coordinate, from community to the ESRAC centers where the multidisciplinary team is located, to the health services where children would also want those services. So we have learned that through the inclusive futures, the intersectoral coordination at the local level, which aligns between the education and the health and the social welfare, the referral pathways, and this is to make sure that identification is translated into the real support. And the last is about, how do we, advocate and lobby for how the government, continues to decentralize the services just close to the people. And with this, we are proudly to say that we have, made a contribution to ensuring that the education assessment centers, we have the commitment from the government that now will be decentralized at the council level, in the sense that every child will be able to get that assessment before they join and enroll into primary schools. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Julius. Thank you for those reflections, especially on the significance of, stakeholder engagement and leveraging partnerships to ensure that you're able to work on the goals together. Thank you, Julius. Our next speaker today is Sanu Khimbaja, Program Manager of National Federation of the Deaf Nepal. Sanu Khimbaja is a dedicated disability rights advocate with over 17 years of experience in the disability sector in Nepal. He currently serves as a project manager at the National Federation of the Deaf Nepal. His work focuses on enhancing communication access and inclusion for persons who are deaf and deafblind, and is a professional sign language interpreter. Sanu's passion lies in building systems that empower persons with disabilities to communicate, learn, and participate fully in society. Sanu, if I could ask you maybe to take us through, what does direct one-to-one assistance, which is one of the recommendations of the the paper, of course, what does direct one-to-one assistance and communication look like for someone with multiple impairments or complex disabilities?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, perfectly.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Gayatri, for the introduction. And then it's been a kind of like a journey trip going through this personal one-to-one support and communication aspect. And in Nepal, we are working very together with the government, and there's a big protest going on some time back about the personal assistant support to be linked with the social security program as well. So talking about our work, we started working with Sense International since 2017, and we are working very much on children with deaf blindness and complex disabilities, particularly focusing on their education. And more than 100 children are now enrolled in resource classes, and similar children are now in the mainstream classroom as well. So we when talk about the work we are doing, actually we are running a flagship program, we call it Task Order 53, which is focused on inclusive education. And we've been working with around 140 children with complex disabilities in this project who are out of school, and we work together with the local government in Bharatpur and Kalika in Chitwan to bring them in the classroom. So talking about the personal assistant and one-to-one support, so I just want to give some of the case story as example that will link how we work in the one-to-one support program as well. So let me give an example of Susmita. Susmita is from a Chepang community, which is one of the most marginal community in Nepal. She has severe cerebral palsy and lives in a very remote area of Kalika municipality. Before our project, actually, there was no support. She was lying on her floor in the room. She never was out of her room, actually. So she never has opportunity to explore the environment outside as well, because there is no one-to-one support. There's no support that she received to go out, and the family were not aware about the support she required. So when we started a home-based education program, so our itinerant teachers, they visited her, Susmita and her mother Lali. And then they talked about her safety, talk about how her body postures can be improved, and they start with the individual education plan, which is quite essential. From that individual education plan, actually, her strengths were identified, and looking at her mobility aspect, gradually that has been improved with the regional accommodation support within the home, and gradually she is enrolled in a classroom where she can sit properly right now. And with the itinerant teachers, she's getting to classroom and she started to learn. So this is one case story actually, and also I would also like to give you one other case story about the child with the deaf blindness. So Deepak, he's a deaf blind. He was deaf by born, and when he was 9, he lost his vision as well. So he's total deaf blind. And the problem when he became deaf blind was the communication. There is no one in school who can communicate with him, and there is no one who know about tactile sign language. So when we know about these children, Deepak actually, so we work a lot on the tactile sign language. And he was brought to resource class where the teacher was trained on sign language plus tactile sign language. So he started to learn tactile sign language gradually in the Braille, and with the assistant teacher who is very much trained in tactile sign language and technology that required for him to learn in the classroom. So now he's enrolled in class 5, and he has just given his final examination, and he's passed out from there as well. So this kind of a one-to-one support is quite essential for people with complex disability and deaf blindness, particularly in mobility, communication, and education aspect. So many of them, these kind of one-to-one supports are taken as extra burden or too expensive, and system focus mainly on enrollment, but that saying that enrollment do not match ensure their learning in equitable way actually. And then engage and participate in meaningful way are sometimes very difficult for them. So one-to-one support is quite important, and the school and family should be make ready as well before we have that kind of like children going to school. Before we need to look at the overall environment as well. So the recommendation 2 is actually very clear that one-to-one assistant must be tailored to a specific child or person requirement. And also we need to look at the family and the social context in many ways as well. So families face different realities like poverty, marginalization of past and other aspects as well. So we look at that, and we look at the tailored support in mobility, communication, education. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanu, especially for highlighting communication support, for example, as one-to-one assistance is essential for the realization of rights, but also that one-to-one assistance is not just personal assistance, but also cooperation and assistance from practitioners, from teachers, from education providers, etc. So thank you so much for that reflection. With that, I would like to welcome our next speaker, Mellen Marucha. Mellen is Senior Program Coordinator, Sense International Kenya, committed development professional with over 15 years of experience in disability inclusion, program coordination and advocacy. She works closely with government and community partners to improve access to inclusive education, early intervention services, vocational training, and livelihoods for children and adults with complex disabilities. Thanks, Mellen, for being here. So you have obviously worked closely in the field. So one of the recommendations of the paper is to ensure that there is time accommodation and that there's enough time for skills development. Could you talk a little bit to that, please? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair, for the introduction. So I will actually approach this from a very practical point of view, considering the lessons that we learned from our ended project in business, Task Order 50, which I believe we all know that won us a Zero Project Award in the year 2025, something which we're very proud of as Sense International Kenya and Sense International as a whole. Coming down to talking about the additional time for practical skills development. So I will share this from 3 perspectives. 1, planning for the training of micro entrepreneurs with complex disabilities. 2, the execution itself, that is the actual training. And the 3rd approach is follow-up. Starting from the planning, we all understand that persons with complex disabilities also have complex needs or high support needs. Therefore, we had to break down the complex training skills into manageable and comprehensible topics or steps that the micro entrepreneurs can comprehend. This came with the adaptation of the training curriculum, which the consortium had developed, but we had to actually adapt it to suit the needs of the micro entrepreneurs with complex disabilities, to make them understand, to make them comprehend the language in the training component. Secondly, we also had to extend the training duration for the micro entrepreneurs with complex disabilities to understand and also to comprehend the training itself. So you'll find that the other persons with disabilities could finish the training within 3 months. But for persons with complex disabilities, we had to extend this even into 6 months so that we give them more time to grasp the concepts and to understand and to master the concepts being taught during the training. And this comes with the budgetary allocations, because once you decide to increase the time, that the duration for training, it comes with an extra cost. So when planning, we had to include extra training hours, also considering that the micro entrepreneurs cannot could not join the training sessions on their own. They had to be together with their caregivers as their support needs, as their support persons. So being cognizant of the longer training curve, so this comes with an extra budgetary allocation. That is all about the planning. So when it comes to the training itself, during the training, we had to incorporate visual demonstrations and additional repetitions. You would say that they are slow learners, but we do not prefer to call them slow learners. It's only that we have to offer reasonable accommodation, giving them visual demonstrations, repeating some concepts for them to understand. For example, challenging concepts like bookkeeping. Breaking down the bookkeeping into maybe what types of records do you need, which kinds of book do you need to keep, the cash flows, the receipt books, and all that. So breaking that down and giving additional demos for them to understand. Also during the training, you allow them to have longer periods of practice. In our learning sessions, we usually have the training, and then for the learners, they're given something like homework, go and do this, go and practice this. So after the training, the micro entrepreneurs together with their caregivers were given more time to go and practice what they had learned because of the support needs that they require, giving them more time to go and put into practice. And when they come back for the second module or the third module or the next module in short, then the trainer is able to assess, did the micro entrepreneur together with the caregiver comprehend or put it into practice, whatever they had learned. And then we also have follow-up sessions. Follow-ups are very, very, very key because when you're following up on the micro entrepreneurs, this comes with increasing the frequency of visiting the micro entrepreneurs at their business sites. This is for the purpose of mentorship. During training, this is theory that is offered, but now the micro entrepreneurs are visited by the trainers at the business sites. The trainer is able to see that this is what I taught you and this is what you are practicing, so that they can identify the areas of strength and the areas of weakness that require to be boosted. Like maybe if it requires refresher training or if it requires more mentorship in a very specific area. Also, during this follow-up, we also have to introduce like comeback sessions, or we call them refresher sessions. After visiting the micro entrepreneurs in the business sites, you'll discover that there's a concept that they did not grasp very well. So then that calls for a refresher. So you call them back into the theory classroom, and then you're able to take them through the step-by-step on the areas that you discovered they were not very strong in as a business enterprise. That is now the micro planning, the execution, and the follow-up. So maybe to conclude this is I can say that by giving more time for skills development for the micro entrepreneurs with complex disabilities, it is not all about slowing down the process of training. We do not have to look at it at maybe it is expensive, it is time consuming, but it is a process of making it more meaningful, making the training, the skills acquisition more meaningful. And by doing this, you're going to create real opportunities for the micro entrepreneurs with complex disabilities, together with the caregivers. They're going to make them have skills that will eventually help them to live, learn, and thrive, which is our motto as Sense International. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mellen. Thank you for that reflection and also for breaking it down so clearly, what to do before, what to do during, and what to do after, to ensure that there's a holistic approach to planning, budgeting, making the content accessible. Thank you, and the mentorship follow-up, of course. Thank you so much, Mellen. I will now invite to speak Sazzad Kabir, Development Manager, Center for Disability in Development, Bangladesh. Sazzad Kabir is the Development Manager at CDD and currently serves as the implementation lead for home-based education components of the Inclusive Future Education Project in Bangladesh. With nearly 2 decades of experience in disability inclusion, he has led initiatives on inclusive education, home-based support, capacity building, working closely with the government, OPDs, and international partners in Bangladesh. So Sazzad, if I may ask you, as part of your extensive experience in inclusive education, you've worked closely with families, caregivers, and personal assistants. And this is also one of the recommendations of the paper, is to work closely with families, caregivers, and personal assistants. What does this look like in practice, and how do we make sure that it supports the impact of the project? Could you reflect a little bit on that, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Gayatri, giving me the opportunity. And today I would like to share our experience for Task Order 45, which is implemented in Bangladesh. Home-based education is one of the components over there. We are working with family, caregiver, and personal assistance for people with complex disability, particularly children with deafblindness and multiple disabilities. Very often, when we designed a project, empowered person with disabilities family treated as the secondary stakeholder. At the end of the project, when we conclude that time parents or caregiver were not supportive, we told that. Our experience under Task Order 45 challenged this assumption. For the children with deafblindness, severe and multiple disability, family and caregiver, their personal assistants are not the secondary actors. They are the center. These children depends on them almost every task of daily life, and without their meaningful involvement, no intervention can be effective and sustainable. In Task Order 45, Shikbo Shobai, everyone will learn home-based support. Our approach was under Task Order 45 was built to three layer of support around caregiving. The first step were simply but powerful. We sat with the family, listen them, then often conversation, we identified where caregiver needs support, guidance, or resources. This help build trust and them asked to partner on the, not as a participants. At the start of Task Order 45, most family we worked with were not saying anything. Many parents had never received guidance on how to support their children learning on daily living at home. Caregiver often driven by fear and protection rather than the empowerment. Personal assistance where they exist lack of technical skill and confidence. Our first lesson, our first lesson was the family were not positive, passive beneficiaries. They are the primary educators. Through regular home visit, we provide hands-on training to the caregivers on communication, activity of daily living, mobility, pre-learning skill, and safeguarding. The practice step-by-step support change mindset, parents being to see progress, and with that, hope replace fear. Second, we learn that confidence grows through practice, not training alone. While organized structural training for 100 caregivers, real changes happen during home visit where caregiver practiced skill with their own children. Support by home-based education facilitator, personal assistants, and family member learned how to adapt everyday household item into learning material, making support sustainable things. The third important lesson was peer support and collective voice. We facilitated 30 parents and caregiver support group, which became safe space for sharing experience, challenges, and solution. Over the time, family moved for solution to collective advocacy. Many now speak directly with the support service provider, local authorities to demand their support, their children's entities to do. We also done exchange visit. Uh, uh, Through this exchange visit, their capacity being developed. We also learned working with the family strengthens inclusion beyond at the home. As caregiver became confident, they engaged with the community's challenges, stigma, and preparedness for the teachers for inclusion. Their involvement was critical to transition the children from home-based learning into the inclusive education setting. Finally, task order 45 showed us including people with complex disability in development start with their family. When family and personal assistants are equipped, respected, and involved in the decision making, children with complex disability can learn, communicate, and participate. Our experience confirms as a simple but powerful thought: sustainable inclusion is built at home with family at the center. So here the key message: empower family first. They are with the children 24/7. Equip them, listen deeply, connect them, and include them in the decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sazzad, especially for that reflection that persons with disabilities, especially with complex disabilities, and with high support needs, are being given that support by family, by caregivers, and it's essential to include them in every stage of project implementation. So thank you so much for that reflection. Before we go to our next speaker, Shrutilata, I would like to remind everybody that if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen. To add any questions, panelists, please, you are welcome to respond to them using the Q&A box. You can hit type answer and respond to them. And then we will have a few minutes to take questions at the end after Shrutilata's intervention, but please feel free to use the Q&A box. Thank you. With that, I am excited to introduce our next speaker, Shrutilata Singh. Shrutilata Singh has progressive deafblindness. She has a diploma in physiotherapy and has been working for Sense International India since 2020, engaging with stakeholders to advocate for the rights of persons with deafblindness in India. She also works on building capacity of family members, fellow young people with deafblindness, and coordinates a national network of adults with deafblindness. Shrutilata's areas of interest are safety with accessibility, rights of girls and women with deafblindness, inclusive higher education for people with deafblindness, digital accessibility, and technology support. Shruti, we are happy to have you here. Could you share with us some of your reflections on supporting persons with deafblindness and working together with other persons with deafblindness? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gayatri, for the introduction. And here today, I'm speaking not just as a person with lived experience, but also in behalf of the community that I represent, and also trying to bring up their voices. And here, everyone shared about the need for inclusive efforts to include people with complex disability. So we must remember that inclusion is not partial. So to understand that, we have to understand about different areas of life where support is required for people with complex disability, because there are different areas that are needed. It could be many things, many areas. And let's try to understand some of these areas, because if inclusion in one area fails, then the other areas are automatically affected, keeping in mind the complex needs of the community. And so let's try to understand it. So we all already know about the need for early intervention, how important it is in lives of most of the people with disability when they are young, or even when they are old, but their disability is still starting. So now let's just move to education. When we talk about education, it is the most important area, one of the most important area. And most of the people with complex disability struggle, not because of the impairment, but because of the barriers that they are created by the environment, by the system. Let me give you a few examples. Like there was one person with total deafblindness who was depending on tactile sign language, trying to pursue higher education, but then the system was not prepared. Why? Because in the system, only one type of reasonable accommodation like writer is available. But then the person needed even the sign language interpreter, that to tactile sign language plus the scriber. So the system had to be modified in that case. Another example was about a girl who was trying to figure out which uh, area she should put for her higher education, because so see, being a person with complex disability, like deaf blindness, so was finding it difficult to get support, interpreter, and other support. And she watched all her classmates who were only deaf, either only deaf or either only blind, getting opportunities in different areas, but then she was not able to get it. So this is the gap in the system that we need to address. And then another area is about socialization. No, social inclusion in socialization can be invisible. A person can be present at the place but yet invisible. Now we have so many examples of it, not just in our meetings and other places, but also in families itself, in their families. Many of the network members shared that they, in the community that I am leading, they shared that they are neglected even by the family members. They are not included fully in decision, either in decision making, in festivals, in family functions, because for people with complex disability, it is not just about being present, it is about participation. They are not given the opportunity to get the access to the information, to access to entertainment and everything, making them neglected. It is also about family members not being having the patience to support them in terms of communication and other things. This is also very much need area. And then when we move from socialization, there are other like healthcare system. Then inaccessible healthcare isn't just exclusion; it can be a risk for people with complex disabilities. No, I remember during the COVID, most of the people with deafblindness telling me that they suspected that they had COVID and other medical conditions also. But then, they avoided going to the hospitals just because they were scared. Scared of what? That the doctors wouldn't be able to understand what they would be communicating, and then no, it won't be taken. They won't be taken seriously. Yeah. So they tried to just to avoid it and get better on their own. So that is a real risk. And then another types of healthcare, the issues that we see often is that the people with complex disabilities often who are often depending on residual senses, like either the vision or hearing or only one sense or limited, now suddenly losing the other sense. This is also a medical kind of emergency, and at that time, immediate intervention is required. But then, when it is not addressed at the right time, then it affects so much of their happening, like their mental health as well. So this is also very much of need area. Other than that, about employment, financial independence, when we talk about it, every single person would want to be financially independent. No one wants to be totally dependent on others, not even people with complex disability. And so we must remember here that with right support and guidance, and also with the help of right to the assistive technology and training, people with complex disability can contribute a lot in employment, in financial contribution at home also. Now, I myself have experienced it because I understood in my job and as my role that once we get the right kind of opportunities and the guidance, we can contribute so much and learn so much just like everyone else. So, reflecting on all the areas that and what we all are focusing on for making the future inclusive, we must also remember that uh, inclusion will work only when people with complex disability are at the center of the design that we are trying to create to make the future inclusive. And we must also ensure that they are not neglected, they are not left behind, because inclusion itself is not charity but justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Shrutilata. Thank you for that reflection. We have a few minutes to take questions, and there are questions in the Q&A box. Thank you to everyone who's put them there. Sanu, I think there's a question for you. How practical is it to plan and provide individual educational support to children with multiple disabilities in a large classroom of 40 to 50 children? And in developing countries, what were challenges and how was it addressed?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I was typing the answer, so I think I will take the opportunity to talk this in the floor itself. So based on our practical work in Nepal from the project learning as well. So managing 40 to 50 children in a very large classroom is challenging, and having children with complex disabilities or multiple disabilities that added additional challenge for teachers. Many often we think that a teacher is everything, like the teacher should do everything, but that's not possible for a teacher to look at every aspect many often. So what we work in the project is that we train teachers in the UDL approach. We have mentors who support teachers in the universal design learning approach, so that they can somehow manage diverse learning needs of children with diverse needs actually. Another area is that in the project, we envisioned mobile teachers who are trained with different learning aspects and looking at diverse children. We train them on that aspect, and they went to the classroom and provided support in individual education plan, and based on that individual education plan, supporting their learning as well. And I think the one-to-one support is quite important there. But as the question also very much highlighted, that in the resource constraint countries like Nepal, it's sometimes very hard because it's taken as extra cost. But we work with the Ministry of Education, where this example was given, and we want to scale up this program. So that's what we encourage from the OPDs as well. So OPDs, national level OPDs, local OPDs has visited our project, and this was taken as one of the example work, and they want to scale it up as well. So Minister of Education then developed inclusive education standard. A draft was developed, final draft was developed. Then, we have a Genji protest, and then the process was stopped in between some time. So the ministry is now again in the discussion to pass out the standard, which talk about kind of like support that, how to provide those support in those schools where we have children with disabilities, and particularly with the complex disabilities as well. So I think OPDs have a very crucial role here to do more advocacy, and then bring out these kind of examples that we have in the country, which could be replicated throughout the country itself. I hope I could I answered the question.
Yes, no, thank you so much, Sanu, and also feel free to continue and respond with your typed response. That should also be of great use to our participants. We have a few more questions, and I also am able to see in the answer box that our panelists are also responding to them via typing. So we have a question that says, How have organizations that promote support services been able to mitigate the risk of promoting institutionalization for children with complex disabilities in order to make service delivery easier? We also have other questions around similar risk evaluation of these types of projects. Would a panelist like to address any of these questions? And again, just for all of our participants, all of the questions are being recorded, and since your information was provided during registration, there will be a document that has all the responses, and that will be circulated in the coming week. Okay, then just keeping my eye on the clock, I would like to thank our speakers for their reflections that they brought to the discussion. And really what we've heard today reinforces that the inclusion of persons with complex disabilities is not about exceptional effort. It's about intentional design. It's about sustained commitment and being willing to adapt our approaches, keeping budgets and plans flexible. I hope that this conversation stays with us, and I would like to give the mic over to Daniel to close for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Gayatri, for expertly guiding the session. And again, as you rightly said, a big thank you to our panelists and Shrutilata for generously sharing your insights and experiences, and of course to Inclusive Futures for providing a platform to share and amplify this pool of knowledge. To our audience, thank you for your participation and attention. I'm sure and I trust that you leave here with one or two valuable takeaways. With that, we come to the close of our webinar. This has been Daniel Musango, the country lead at Sense International Kenya. Thank you and goodbye for now. Bye-bye.